And this is part 3, where are my wheels? So we are in Onshape. We've started in part 1, we created a sketch. In part 2, we extruded our rails. So that's where we're at. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the view cube, and I'm going to look to the right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as the way that I can position my wheels. So, a couple things with the wheels. First off, I need to make some decisions. Decision number 1, what pulley am I going to use? Now, andymark.com, AM14U5 and AM14U6, this is the kit of parts chassis. We've built this a couple of times, so the key thing is we have all of these parts. And you can see there's a 42 tooth pulley in that. So to make things simple, we're just going to use those pulleys, and that's 42 teeth. You can see there's some belts as well, and this is where we need to make some decisions. So the first thing that I want to point out is these belts are HTD. This is a standard, and standards are really important to understand. So we're going to switch over to West Coast Products. So wcproducts.com. This website allows us, they have some calculators in here, and that's really useful. So I'm going to scroll down, and I am going to look at their resources page. So on their resources page, there's a belt calculator. So with this belt calculator, I can make some decisions. So the first thing is the pitch. So HTD belts have a pitch of 5 millimeters. So 5 millimeters is the distance between the teeth. So the pitch is 5 millimeters. My design is in inches, so I'm going to stick with inches. And they allow me to restrict it to Vex W West Coast Products only. That's fine. So pulley. I mentioned the first one was 42 teeth, so we're going to select 42 teeth. And in here, we can get some desired centers. So if we look at the Andy Mark, 120, 160, 131, what we can do is we can change this desired center. So let's go 7 inches, let's go 8 inches. There we go, 11 inches. So there's the 160. We'll see about that. So what we want to do is let's go back into our sketch. So we can refer to that calculator in a moment. Now on our sketch, I've changed my view so that I'm looking at the right-hand side, and I'm going to create a new sketch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call it sketch wheel locations. And I'm going to select the right-hand plane to do my sketch on. There we go. So I'm going to start with the circle. So the circle tool, the letter C is my keyboard shortcut. Remember, if you have trouble finding a tool, use the search tools to find it. So the circle tool, I'm going to create a construction circle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mouse and I'm holding it over the center origin. And I'm going to move it up. And you see that dotted line and the little icon. That icon indicates that this point is going to be vertically constrained. It's going to stay vertical to the origin. So that's great. I'm going to click once. I'm going to move my mouse. I'm going to click a second time, and I'm going to take my hands off. So the dimension for a circle is the diameter. So I'm just going to now, on my keyboard, just notice I'm not touching my mouse at all. I'm just going to type the number 6 on my keyboard and hit enter. So here is a wheel, and what I have with this wheel is it is a 6-inch wheel. Now the reason that it is a construction line is I don't want to actually make this into an object. Later on I'm going to import a wheel, and that'll be great. But I do want to make sure that the geometry works. So I've got my wheel. I'm going to turn off my tools by clicking them on the toolbar. There's my wheel. Now, I can move that center, and I can move it up and down, but you'll notice I can't move it sideways. That's the vertical constraint. So what I want to do is I want to set my dimension tool. Remember, the letter D is the shortcut for the dimension tool. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to click the center of the circle. Then I'm going to click the origin. Then I'm going to move my mouse to the side and click. Now, what I want is I am going to take 0.5, which is half an inch, minus 1 divided by 16. So 0.5 minus 1/16. So what this is, if I hit enter, whoops, I just made a mistake. Double click, I'm going to fix that. Instead of 0.5, sorry, it is 1 minus 1 divided by 16. So what this is this is a 2-inch square tubing. So the middle of that is going to be 1 inch. And what I'm doing is I'm actually moving the center down 1/16 of an inch. And the reason I'm doing that is I want my center wheel to be lower than my other wheels. And what's going to happen is that when I'm driving, I've got 3 wheels on my robot frame. Well, that's a lot of friction because when I'm turning, it's like a tank. To turn, the wheels on the one side go one direction, the wheels on the other side go the other direction. So the front and back wheels will tend to scrub. And what I'm doing is by dropping the center wheel so it's just a little bit lower than the others, they won't scrub quite as much. So I drop it 1/16 and I raise the other wheels 1/16, which means that there's a 1/8 inch difference. Doesn't seem like much, but it'll help my robot turn. So there's my center point, there's my center wheel. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another circle, and I'm just going to click now. You'll notice I'm moving it over here. This is silly, and I'm just going to hit escape. I'm not going to set the measurement. The reason I'm doing this is that it'll help me set my measurements. So that's a really key thing. Now, what I want to do is I want this circle to be the same size. So over here, we have our constraints. And one of them is the equal sign, which is the letter E. So if I hit the letter E on my keyboard, that will turn on my equal constraint. And I can now press this circle, click, and I can click the other circle, click. And what I've done now is that I have constrained these 2 circles so that they are the same diameter. I'm going to just undo, and I'm going to demonstrate again. So circle tool, construction tool. Remember, C for circle, Q for construction. I'm going to click and escape. That makes a circle. I'm going to now type the letter E, and I'm going to click this circle and that circle to make them equal in size. And it's a lot more obvious when I have a smaller circle. You see it expands to be 6 inches. Now, this circle I need to set. So I want to make it 1 inch higher than this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my dimension tool. Actually, no, I'm not. Just give me 1 second. Dimension tool, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the center of this circle and the center of this circle. And you'll notice that I can move this way, and that will give me the center to center distance. If I move my mouse this way, that gives me the vertical distance. And if I move my mouse this way, it gives me the horizontal. So the reason that I did this is that it's easier for me to move my mouse to get the center to center distance. So I'm just going to click over here and I'm going to type the number sign. Now, the number sign allows me to select a variable, or it allows me to create a new variable. So I'm going to create a new variable, enter, and I'm going to select a number. Oops, go back to length. So the number 6, that's great. I'm just going to use that. So select number C to C. So the letter C, TOC, notice no spaces, and I'm just going to type the letter 6. I'm going to change that value later, but what I've done is this is going to be my center to center distance for my belt, green check mark. and enter. So you'll notice over in the features, there is now a center to center variable. So 6 is my center to center distance. And this is really useful. I can create variables as I go. So if I forget to do them in advance, I can create them. So here's my center to center distance. I'm going to use my distance and I'm going to now click the two centers again. And I'm going to move my mouse this way so that it is going to be the vertical distance, 1/8. I want that to be 1/8. Now, here is the key. I'm just going to click the green check mark. Right now, this wheel is obviously going to be ridiculously close. I can change my center to center distance. So let's try 10. And you can see as I move that, I can get it closer to the front. So with my belt calculator, you can see the 160 tooth belt is 11.614. All right, so I can change this and I can just copy and paste 11.614. There we go. So that gives me my center to center distance. That's really useful. Now, I'm going to add another variable. HTD pulley teeth number 42. The reason I'm doing this, I'm not actually going to use this at all, but I'm just adding that variable and I can actually drag it up here. But when later on, when I'm going, oh, what size pulley was that? I don't have to second guess. It's actually in my sketch now. So it's easy for me to remember that. So that's the key thing. I'm going to do the same thing for the belt. And so it's 160 teeth belt. So I'm just going to add a variable, change it to number, belt teeth, and 160. And that way I have these variables. I'm going to drag them up there so I can refer to them later on. So if I decide, yeah, I'm going to build this and I'm going to start buying parts or go into my storage area and picking parts, I can refer to the sketch and I can go, okay, I need a 42 teeth pulley. I need a belt that's 160 teeth and it's got to be HTD. Perfect. So that's the other thing. I can do the same thing. I can add a variable for wheel diameter. And remember, we were dealing with 6-inch wheels. So obviously, sketching wheel locations, there's the 6. I need to change that to wheel diameter. But now, everything I can change. So I can change that to a 4-inch wheel. And just like that, it's now a 4-inch wheel. So that's really useful. Okay, so I have my front wheel, my middle wheel. I'm going to go back into wheel locations and I'm going to use the mirror tool. So the mirror tool, I'm going to, actually, no, I'm not going to do that yet. We're going to add more circles. So the circle tool, again, see, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and click. So this is going to be my bearing hole. So my bearing is 1.125. Those are my bearing holes. Now, often I need to add a distance. Usually when I'm typing in a hole, what I'll do, and I'm just going to demonstrate that very quickly, is I will have an offset. And typically 0.015 is my offset. So when I have an offset, and if I drag it up here, sketch wheel locations go back in, what I'll often do is I'll go in here and instead of 1.125, I'll type 1.125 plus number sign offset. And the reason for that is that now I can have a hole and I've got my offset set so that all my holes are just slightly bigger and I can adjust that. So that's really, really useful. And I'm going to just add another circle right here. Click, click. And again, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to type equals. So the letter E, and I'm going to click those two circles. And I should now have 1.125 plus my offset, which is 0.015. And this is the same size as well. It should be. Oops. Let's just make sure equals. There we go. Now that I've got that. So now that I've got that hole done, now I can use my mirror tool. And I'm going to mirror that. I'm going to select that circle and that circle and that circle. And if I zoom out, there we go. I now have my three wheels. I can see how far away they are from the front. That seems to be a good distance. Good. If I had the wheels really close together, then it wouldn't be as stable. This is nice and long and stable. We're good. So green check mark. My wheel locations are set. And you'll notice that the sketch is right in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude. And I'm going to extrude my wheel locations. And you'll notice I get this little thing. I want to select remove. And I get red because it's not touching anything. Well, merge scope, I want to the left and right. We're going to merge with that. Now, through all, I want, and you'll notice it's going through that side because it's going in that direction. That's where the symmetric comes in. I can select it so it's symmetrical, and now I've got holes through both. So extrude, this is my bearing holes. Green check mark, and just like that, I now have my bearing holes, and that's where my wheels are going to go. And you can see the center wheel is a drop center. It's 1/8 of an inch lower than the other two wheels, which will reduce the friction when I'm driving my robot. Stay tuned for our next tutorial.